reconvene this meeting. And we will start with item 15. And at this point in time, we're going to continue on with our regular agenda. But at 12 o'clock noon, we are going to take a lunch break. And no matter what point we're at, we're going to do that. So I just thought we'd let everybody know. Item 15 is a rezoning request to consider a rezone petition from AG to mobile home residential. The property is generally described as a southeast quarter of Section 16, Township 139 North, Range 96 West. At this time, I'd ask the party presenting to please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, with this, I would also ask that the special use permit for the mobile home park, the next item, that we should discuss both items because they're both intertwined with one another. As part of your deliberation, you would need to make two separate motions, but you want to discuss both because I think that, you know, the rezone request from ag to mobile home is the first step in order for them to move forward with the special use permit. But if for some reason you have, if you're not in favor of the special use permit, you don't want to provide a favorable recommendation for a rezone that could allow other land uses that you would not be anticipating. So I would strongly suggest that you discuss both items and then break it up. Probably have public testimony with respect to the special use permit and the rezone all at the same time, and then break up your motions because both are intertwined at this point. That'll be one of the few times that I'll tell you that it's okay to mix the rezone with the other item.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. And I would ask again, out of respect for the parties that put their time in to put this together, if they would like to present today, items 15 and 16, please come forward. If they're not here, I am going to, at this time, move this to the end of our agenda out of courtesy to them.
He left with
We,
sorry.
that's fine, ma'am, I don't know. But I am going to go on now. At this point in time, we're going to item 17.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I just, before you move, can I just give you a suggestion and you could decide which way you want to go? I think a lot of the public here is for that item. If you want to at least take their testimony and if they want to wait to the end for the final disposal of the action, that would be nice, but if you want to continue it on, that's fine. But I think a lot of the people here are here to comment on it. It would probably be good to hear their testimony and then continue it to the latter end if you like. It's your call, but they've been waiting a while.
Yep. Thank you. At this point in time, and we will do that. I think that's an excellent suggestion. Even though hopefully you have your thoughts in order, you haven't been able to hear the party presenting. We will go back to item 15, and you've got a general idea of what it is about. And I would ask then, if there's anyone in the public who would like to make comment on this rezoning request and special use permit, we're going to take comment on both of those. We're going to treat these together right now because they're intertwined. Please feel free to come forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Mr.
Jack,
Preby,
go
if I
ahead.
could, just for a second.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Corton has made a number of suggestions here that if this goes forward, if it's approved, he's made recommendations about requirements that we should put on this project. And I'm thinking before we take all this testimony, maybe the folks in the audience would like to hear the things that Mr. Corton has recommended.
Mr. Corton, has anyone seen these suggestions? Okay. Do you think you could present these quite well?
I hope he can.
Mr. Preby, thank
20
you.
items, it took me an hour or so, but I'll provide staff comments. That's probably a good way to entering into this. At this point, I feel that at the best, that this should be continued, because there's a lot of outstanding items that, as staff's perspective, that we feel that either we can't condition appropriately, or we're not certain of how that will be done with respect to the operations. Because we're talking about a mobile home park in which most of the operations and enforcement and maintenance is done by a private party. And that is a difficult thing to condition, because the city will have to enforce an issue on a lot of different measures that, be quite frankly, we don't want to enforce. But it needs to be done, and the follow-up is going to be very time-consuming. So it's been a difficulty trying to do that. We're also very cognizant of the neighbors to the north, to the west, that are opposed to it. This development with respect to the overall size is a major concern for staff. If this was a smaller project, we'd feel more comfortable. But when you're talking about a major mobile home park going in this area, in an area that could be classified as as residential, single-family, we have concerns with the compatibility issue. So what I have proposed is our 20 conditions that would address a good number of the issues if you, as the commission, decided to grant approval of that. But from staff's perspective, we're requesting a continuance, and I'm leaning towards the side of actually recommending a denial at this point, because I don't think it's probably the right location for it due to its size, the intensity but I will read the conditions that will take some time, but I'll read them for you. And from there, I think Mr. Preby and others could comment and address their concerns as well. I'll just read right through them. I won't stop. So the first one is, all industrial properties situated to the west should be notified of the minimum 500-foot separation requirement for tanker trucks and other industrial activities prior to the next public meeting, to provide each landowner with the opportunity to comment on this petition request. This is becoming more problematic with this. We do have industrial property on the east side, and I looked at it yesterday. It doesn't appear that these industrial tankers, ones that are flammable, that potentially could be hazardous to residential uses, are currently located there, but they would be impacted by this development because you would have that 500-foot separation. A second tornado shelter shall be built to satisfactorily address adequate room for all residents in parking, unless sufficient room and off-site parking is provided for the community by the proposed shelter, and this requirement is administratively removed by the city planner. This condition is one in which, due to the size of this one and the private roads, the no parking on the streets, if you had a tornado come through in clement weather, I don't think everybody is going to be in such a relaxed mood to quietly drive their car and wait for somebody to get into the parking spaces. Everyone's going to be rushing. They're going to be parking all over the roads next to it. And then what's going to happen is that cars will be in the road, so that when the tornado goes through, if it does, then emergency service couldn't get by, because now you have cars that will be blocking it because everyone will be rushing. So I think a second tornado shelter, due to its size, is probably warranted. The property owner shall be responsible party for all code infractions and/or violations relative to the initial site work and building activities, park operation and maintenance, and all attached conditions contained herein as part of the special use permit. And then I referenced the section of our code that talks about fines and the enforcement of that. What I'm stating here would be, irrespective if it's a lot owner, if they are in violation of city codes or the requirements as part of this, the overall materials as part of the operation, the park ownership is the responsible party. Their job is to enforce their covenants or requirements. It's not for us to go after individual units. They are the responsible party. They should be enforcing it, so they will be the ones that they will get the violation order. Property owner shall install, or the property owner shall install no parking signs approved by the city to be installed at equal distances throughout the development. These signs shall remain in perpetuity or until the SUP is terminated. The city engineer shall approve all roads and infrastructure prior to any site grading or building activity. This is important. We want to make sure that that all works, that they're not going to start grading and construction without us knowing that the whole infrastructure is going to balance out and work. The park shall remain in substantial conformance with the approved application materials. That is based upon what they have submitted. Lots along the northerly portion of the park situated in blocks 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. These are the lots that are abutting the Decker subdivision, shall not be permitted to install any residential units until approved by the City Commission after a favorable recommendation by the Planning Commission to ensure compliance with established conditions attached herein. Until development has been approved for these above lots, all lots shall remain in open space areas as open space areas maintained by the mobile home park, consistent with the overall park open space maintenance plan. Prior to submission to the City Commission, the developer shall provide the following: a detailed landscape and maintenance plan and park operation plan. The reason I'm asking for this, so that we can condition it appropriately, so that we know exactly what their responsibilities are with respect to this proposal. Prior to final SUP approval, legal ownership shall be established and shall remain for the life of the SUP. If the property owner transfers to another individual, party, or entity, then the SUP is terminated. What we want to do there is ensure that they are the ones providing it, they are the owners, that if they sell the property, then the special use permit is terminated and a new party has to come back through us. Lot spaces shall have a minimum 2-car garage in each lot. This will make it so that it will be a little bit better appearance-wise. Also, there will be sufficient parking off-site. So this could hopefully eliminate the overcrowding and potential parking of the streets, because the streets are going to be minimal streets, only 20-foot wide, and we have concerns that those streets have to always remain open with respect to emergency services. No RVs, campers, fifth wheels, or other temporary housing units shall be permitted within the park. Prior to final SUP approval, the park shall obtain approval from the fire department relative to access, circulation, and fire protection. We want to make sure that those emergency issues are addressed satisfactorily. No placement of residential units shall occur for phases 2 and 3, which are the phases in the middle and further to the west, until phase 1 is 80% occupied and the park is consistent with all conditions attached herein, and there are no outstanding violations. The key with that is they cannot continue on if their first phase is in violation. Performance bond shall be issued for $1 million for the life of the SUP to ensure proper park maintenance and remediation of the site after termination of the park. $1 million bond would ensure that if the City Commission, for whatever reason, they either go bankrupt or we remove their mobile home park status and we have to relocate and remediate the site, that would allow us a sufficient amount of money to do that. No commercial, manufacturer, or mobile home sales facility is approved. Model units, if proposed, shall only be allowed in connection with the rental office and shall only be located on established lots. What we don't want to do is have it to be a display area for Centennial Homes. Sometimes you'll have that in there. They'll say, yeah, go ahead and look at all these units, and it will become, a portion of that will become a commercial activity. The property owner shall remain in compliance with the city's solid waste removal requirements at all times. The maximum of 395 mobile home or manufactured dwelling units are approved with this permit. Obviously, that is contingent upon if you further limit it, but that's what they have proposed. We want to clarify that issue so that they don't allow additional lots or additional dwelling units that are above what they have submitted. In any event that the use is hereby permitted ceases operation for a period of 1 year or more, this approval shall become null and void. So if they cease operation for a year, then in essence this permit goes away. That's our sunset clause on it. In the event the use is hereby permitted under this permit is found to be in violation of the terms and conditions of the permit, or is found to have been obtained by fraud or other testimony, or is found to be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, or a public nuisance, this permit shall be subject to the revocation procedures. We do have revocation procedures as part of the SUP permit, in which you go to City Commission to revoke the permit. And then prior to SUP approval, the entire property shall be annexed into the city.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. Thank you very much.
I think we've covered a lot of territory with that. Even with that, city staff would recommend a continuance at best, and based upon testimony in the public, we may recommend denial, because we just don't, due to the density and the size of this development.
Thank you, Mr. Corton. Mr. Jackson, would you like to make any comments? Did that satisfy your desire to have that read?
Yeah, I just thought it would be good that we know what Mr. Corton
Sure.
is recommending, but more importantly, that these folks
Yep.
know
That's
what
very
would be in this approval if an approval is given.
Thank you. At this time, then, we will take public comment. So at this time, if there's anyone who would like to make public comment.
Excuse me, I'm Jim Rinke, representing Southwest Grain. We have a business to the east of this proposed development. We deal in hazardous materials as well as agricultural chemicals, and I don't believe having a residential zone with us, backing us up, is the proper thing to do. It's going to negatively affect us with the setbacks that I'm hearing. Also, the natural waterways from our property go that direction. So we anticipate issues down the road because of the nature of the business we're in, that we're polluting people, that type of thing, whether or not there's anything going on. We actively do have transports there with product. We have hazardous materials on site. And again, having a residential zone backing us up is the reason, one of the reasons we don't want to see that. A few years back, we worked with the city of Dickinson. They didn't necessarily like where we were located on Villard. We then moved out of town to help in that situation, alleviate having that hazardous material in the city of Dickinson, and now it's coming back towards us. So I would recommend that this most definitely does not get approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rickey. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name's Tim Preby. I'm a resident of Decker 3rd Subdivision, 7th Avenue Southwest. We've had numerous discussions with Mr. Rolls. I don't know why he's not here, but I do want to commend him on the fact that he's been willing to work with the neighbors. We've tried to coordinate our efforts, work with city staff and so forth to get the issues addressed. We were hoping through that process and the exchange of information we could come to some common ground. I think if he was here, he'd tell you we've agreed to disagree, on whether this is a feasible project for that location. We did have a neighborhood meeting Sunday night at one of the neighbors' garages, and Mr. Rolls was kind enough to attend, answered some tough questions, so we do appreciate that. But through all of that, we've tried to find some middle ground, but the bottom line is the residents of Decker 3rd, I think I can speak for about all of them, are not in favor of a mobile home subdivision there. We just don't think it's the right location. The proposal that you have in front of you is for about 400 mobile homes. That's a big park. If you think about the number of people that will be living down there, it's big. For the City Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think you've struggled with affordable housing, those kind of issues. First question, do you need that big a mobile home park? And I think the second big issue is this the proper location for that? I came here early to listen to the South Park also. There's a lot of issues, I think, even though you approved it, with the utilities going through, the streets going through. Had the opportunity to talk to the fire chief. There are maybe some emergency services issues with the proposal that Centennial Homes has out there. So for us, there are a lot of unanswered questions that we're not comfortable with. Mr. Corton, I appreciated all of the conditions that he talked about. One of the things that we've talked to Mr. Corton, with Sean, with Commissioner Jackson and so forth, is what assurance does the city have and do us as neighbors have that this is going to be a well-run operation? And, we've looked at the city code, we've looked at what other people do and so forth. I don't know if you can write enough restrictions to get that assurance. It comes down to the owner of the park, how they're going to operate it. We've had good experience with park owners in Dickinson and bad experience. When it's bad, it can be really bad. We don't want that experience down there. The big issue, I think, is the location. You know, I can't stand up here and disagree that there may be a need for a mobile home park in the city of Dickinson. As I was listening to Mr. Corton's comments, it kind of, to me, begs the question, if you need to put that many restrictions to make us feel comfortable that this might be the proper location, I think it's pretty clear your answer is this probably isn't the right location. If you put the mobile home park there, I know the city commission is looking at selling the property by the fire substation there. You've got the South Park, and the South Park with residential, R1, R2 in the middle makes sense to us. If you extend that down to the south, that would make some sense. But if you approve a mobile home park in that portion, I think it sets the tone and the stage for that part of town. You're always going to have that there. You're going to be trying to fit things around it. We've talked a lot in the neighborhood about the fact that we love it being a pasture there. It's not going to be that forever. It's going to be developed. And we're not opposed to a development as long as it's something compatible with what we've got. If you've been up on our street, we love living out there. It's a great neighborhood. It's a great neighbors and so forth. We've got big lots. One of the things I've talked to city staff and Mr. Rolls about is Decker Third Subdivision, we have restrictive covenants there. We have to have basically an acre lot until it's annexed to the city, and that goes along with the septic requirements of Southwest District and that type of thing. We have a restrictive covenant that you cannot have a mobile home in Decker Third Subdivision. So we're going to have a residential subdivision where it's absolutely prohibited, right next door, have mobile homes. So I guess I don't disagree with where Mr. Corton is coming from. I appreciate all the work he's done. My perspective, I think a continuance would just delay more questions and so forth that this commission, I think, has enough information to decide, is this the right location for a mobile home park like this? And to us, it's pretty clear that it isn't, and we would urge that you deny the request, work with the landowner on some development that's compatible with the surrounding neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prevey. At this time, I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
I'm Kathy Evenson, and I represent the south end of this. I am directly across the street from Steffes Manufacturing. I'm worried about traffic. The 20th Street comes on to 22nd, or 22. How are these people going to get in and out of this park? Yeah. On 20th Street, it's hard enough to get on in regular weather, but when it's icy, you can't make that turn. So I'm worried about 1,000 more cars in my area. Just an idea.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anyone else would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward.
Commissioners, my name is Kyle Kuffler. I'm also a resident on 7th Avenue Southwest, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time to hear us. Some of us have to get back to work, so I'll make sure all your cable's working when I leave here. So, I guess our main concern, and I kind of took the liberty, Tim Preby kind of spearheaded this, and I took the liberty of volunteering my house for the neighborhood meetings because I wanted us to come in here as an organized group. I didn't want us to come in one by one and saying, no, we absolutely don't want this. You know, anybody that, I hate to say it, anybody that's going to have a mobile home park put in their neighborhood is going to come in and oppose it. So I didn't want that. Our neighborhood agrees that the city of Dickinson is moving our way. At some point in time, this land probably will be developed. I can't say I would be sad to see this project denied, and I would be more than happy to see Tom and Larry Kuntz, Doug Damas, Eddie Mitzel, or Gary Bollinger pull their trailers up and start building houses in that lot. That would make us feel much, much better that it would be a nice residential R1 development that would flow nicely with our subdivision. A couple of the concerns we have, first and foremost, is the size and the number of lots that they are proposing. 395 lots is what he has on the map there, times 2 people, that's 790 people at minimum that are coming out of 2 entrances. If you look, he's got an entrance on the south on 20th Street and an entrance to the north, which will eventually be South Park Addition, but, you know, they need to work together on that. So our concern is that, like I said, 2 entrances, the original plan he had showed us had 4 entrances. There were 2 entrances and exits heading towards the frontage road on Highway 22. That has since been deleted, and like I said, so the majority of the park is going to come out on 20th Street Southwest, where all of our neighborhood leaves for the morning for work. And that is going to filter all the way up 22, all the way through the underpass, which we all know is, my children need to wear earmuffs in the morning when we take the underpass on the way to school, because it's not good. And that traffic's going to filter that way. One of the other points I had, Mr. Rolls was pressing the issue of affordable housing. And I guess my opinion on that is affordable housing until a big oil company purchases a quarter of the park, and then they set the standard for what the rent is going to be, because why would you charge $600 for a land lease when you can make $1,000 or you can make $2,000 from these other companies? So right there, his affordable housing is going to go out the window, because we all know that, and everyone is guilty of it, because money is in the area. Money is in the area, and they're going to make the money on 395 lots. The more money they make, the better. One of the main concerns we also have is the drainage. Mr. Preby touched on it as far as the South Park Addition. That whole area is a swamp area. There's a lot of drainage that comes that way. Our street is quite a bit lower than what the Centennial Mobile Home Park would be. Their drainage is going to come our way. And I'm the lowest part of our street, so I get all the drainage from the neighborhood anyway. So we're really concerned about the drainage. Some of the things Mr. Rolls has showed us didn't really address that. He kind of made the comment the other night at our meeting that once it's done, it's done. If it drains your way, too bad. So, like I said, just a couple of things I wanted to touch on, and I thank you guys again for giving us a chance to voice our concern.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. At this time, I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Good morning, I'm Tammy Stang. I live on the south side of the area, right by Kathy, where this is proposed. And same concerns, as well as I don't believe Centennial Homes has the history of being a mobile home. They've been selling them, and they have got a good history in sales, but I don't think they've ever managed mobile home parks in the past.
We just can't take conjecture, but...
So I guess it's just, you know, along with all the restrictions that we're going to have on this, and then the safety of 20th Street Southwest. And until there's some changes with that road, I don't believe the traffic can handle that. And again, thank you, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, Tammy. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come forward.
Hello, I'm Trudy Nyrohr, and I'm also a resident out on 7th Avenue Southwest, and as all the others, we are opposed to it. We're in a very low-density neighborhood right now, and putting all those units there, it's going to go to a very high density, which is a big concern, and the traffic. He had, on his proposal for a special use permit, that he would, I don't know if he assured or not, that frontage road along 22, the private frontage road, would not be affected. But like they said, to gain access to Highway 22 in the wintertime is sometimes impossible without a four-wheel drive. You go down the frontage road, which I think is going to be a huge traffic issue. And when we purchased our lot out there, it was no talk of a mobile home right in our backyard there. And I think it's only fair to us that we have some kind of some other buffer besides 600 trees, and then a mobile home park to be developed there. So we're opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Nyra. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else, please feel free to come forward.
I'm Eddie Prouse with the Big D&E Ed Prouse auction out there. And Gilly's Tire Store is right beside me. And again, I'm going to tell you guys that this entrance that getting on to 22 is going to be hectic. Because we only got, we got 66 feet there, and down about 2 or 3 blocks north of me, there's a 50-foot wide entrance coming in there. And then I don't know where the rest of them are going to be at, but I just would not like to see that, because in wintertime, trying to get on to 22 is going to be something else. With icy conditions, and they come from the south over that hill, and there's going to be accidents, a lot of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prowse. This time, is there anyone else who would like to make comment on this? Please feel free to come forward.
Hi, good morning. I guess we're still in the morning. I am Deb Boland. I live east of where this property is slated to be built. I live right on the frontage road there. So my concerns are that, yes, as it has been mentioned, that frontage road, if they do have to take it in the winter to get out on 22, that frontage road would not be able to take all that kind of traffic with that amount of vehicles going by. I also have a little utility road that goes right back to that field. My biggest concern is, even though I don't think it's going to be developed or used, that once people see it and it's not blocked off, that they will just be constantly going through. How do you stop people from using a nice little utility road that's there to get to the frontage road to get onto Highway 22? So that would cause all sorts of traffic right through my yard that, I just don't even know that I would be able to live there anymore if that was going to happen. I don't know how that would be stopped unless it was blocked off. So I thank you for all the conditions that have been put into place, and I actually would ask for denial for this development. I think it is way too big for that area that's out there, and for even Highway 22 to assume that traffic. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. If there's anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward. Anyone else who would like to make comment on this? Any comments from the commission on this?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jackson?
We've been looking at this for, a couple months now, I suppose, whatever it is. And I've made 3 trips to Bismarck looking at mobile home courts, and I've met with the planning office over there, and I spent an afternoon with one of the owners, a man who owns a number of lots in Bismarck, and some very, very nice trailer courts, very, very nice mobile home courts. I think Mr. Curtan's conditions are valuable. I have some that I would add to them, but I think it's moot. The conclusion that I've made as I've looked at this thing is that there is no way to guarantee a quality mobile home court. It's up to the owner. And the courts in Bismarck are the way they are because the owner has a commitment to making them the way they are. And I think if there was a way that we could guarantee a court like 2 or 3 or 4 of them are in Bismarck, I'm not sure we'd have the opposition. But I don't know any way to do that. So that means we have some risk with this mobile home court or any mobile home court. I think we have risk. It's one thing to accept that risk, putting a court in a location that there are no neighbors. Then maybe it makes more sense to take some of that risk. But we don't have that situation here. So we're putting a lot of risk on it. And the court may turn out to be fine, but I can envision scenarios very easily that it may not. So I think we need to deny the request.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Elkins?
I happen to sit on the Southwest Drain Board, and the
concern that we have is due to what Mr. Rankin stated. At a minimum, there would have to be a security fence placed or put in place. My concern is young children going down and getting into that hazardous material that is there. And it's going to be there. But I don't know that this is the proper location for this court either at this time. I think, Gene, you hit the nail on the head. There's no way of guaranteeing, this is not a court in Bismarck, where that individual lives in that trailer court as well. He's lived in that community for all his life. He has skin in that game. This is different. I guess I would go along with Gene in recommending denial of this project.
Any other comments?
Sure.
Mr. Nodland?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Jackson and Mr. Elkin. We need a mobile, I do think we need more mobile home, a court or more mobile home area in somewhere here in our area, but I don't think this is the right location. I think the Southwest Grain issue, the issues that 4 or 5 of these people brought up some real important issues, the traffic issues, the safety issues. And it really is, and Mr. Jackson hit the nail on the head, it really is what the owner does and how it's operated. We have one in the northeast part of town, the owner lives in it.
Yeah.
And he does a great job. I think he does. I've watched him. But how do we know that? And I think we could write 5 pages of conditions and we'd still have the same problem. But I just think this is the wrong location for a mobile home court, and I agree.
Any other comments at this time? I think this is a wonderful layout. I mean, beautiful drawings, conditions, what they're going to do for their people that live there. And taken by itself, it looks wonderful. But you have to live there, you have to take care of it, you have to have an interest in it personally, not just financially, to make it work. It would be appropriate in another location with all the conditions and all that they do. And still, with those conditions, every condition you add, and every covenant you add by the owners, there are going to be conflicts of who is responsible. There are a lot of issues that were raised validly about safety, traffic, fire. It's not the appropriate place. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would, from staff's perspective, this item was timetabled, the applicant was here, the applicant chose to leave. I don't see that you need to provide the courtesy that to delay the item. I would say my recommendation would be for denial on staff's perspective, and I would recommend that you would ask for a motion.
This time we'll close public portion of this hearing, and I had asked for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that Dickinson Planning and Zoning recommend denial of the rezone petition. I'm assuming it's just the rezone.
Right, we will act on the rezone, and if we do that, we will not continue on with.
From ag to mobile home residential as depicted in the applicable materials as not meeting the requirements of Dickinson Municipal Code and being contrary to the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
There's a second. Mr. Hanson, is there any discussion? Thank everybody for their input, and at this time, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much for your input.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, I think you should act on the SUP and just continue on with your motion on that, just for clarification purposes.
Okay. We were discussing 2 items here, a special use permit and a rezoning request. And at this time, I would ask if any commission member has any further comments on the special use permit.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Mr. Corton's recommendation that you do take a vote on this. I would note, since the property has not been rezoned, the property is not eligible for a special use permit, so I think your course before you is determined.
Okay. So we,
I would still recommend you take a vote on the matter, though.
okay, thank you so much. Any other comments from the commission? Being none, we'll close public comment on the special use permit, and I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Dickinson Planning and Zoning recommend denial of the special use permit for a mobile home park as depicted in the meeting materials and as not meeting the requirements of Dickinson Municipal Code and being contrary to the interests of the public health, safety, and welfare.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Novan, thank you there for a second. He's a little quieter than you are. Is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Recommended denial. Is it 12? We're going to call this time, at this point in time, noon. And we are going to take a lunch break. And we'll continue with item 17 on the regular agenda, which is a rezone request. It's to consider rezone from R1 to R3 for Sunrise Park subdivision generally described as the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 139 North, Range 96 West, and Closure 17. On that, it might say that it's a GC to R3, but it is R1 to R3. And I'll ask Mr. Croton to clarify the description on the map, if you would, please.
Let's grab the application here. It's only 2 lots. He's only proposing a rezone on the 1 lot, which would be the Sunrise Park subdivision. It would be Block 1, Lot 1, which is to the south of First Street Southeast. And it's that big piece going to the outer edge of the business loop. That's proposed to be R3. The remainder of it would stay as R1.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask the party presenting, please come forward. Let us know what you'd like to do.
My name is Kim Coling. I'm Coling Reynolds. Our plan is to build an apartment complex on this land. Don't really know, I'm envisioning something like Century Apartments, several buildings in there in a complex like that. We haven't done anything with any planning, anything yet, because we still don't know if this is going to go to R3 or not, so have no other drawings or planning so far.
So you have no idea how many units you could put on there or would like to?
Well, the maximum, whatever the land will let us put there. You know, we haven't, you know, we're still trying to find out if this is going to go to R3, if it will go to R3, if the maximum is 20 units per acre and we can fit the parking and whatever else goes on there, it would be 70, 80, 90, 100 units if it would fit there.
And would you own those and rent them yourself, or who would?
I'm pretty sure we would not own them. We would build them for someone.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Kim, you
Alpert.
met with us before and you had proposed like 4 units being placed in here, had you not?
Buildings.
Buildings.
Yes.
Apartment type R3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Similar to, like I said, a Century Apartments.
Right.
A complex like that.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Coling? Thank you, Mr. Coling.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, I'd ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to make comment on this, please feel free to come forward.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Rick Kleinrichter. My brother and I own East End Auto right next door. Between East End and where Ladbury Funeral Home is where they're wanting to do the rezone from R1 to R3. I also live at 112 10th Avenue East. Is the first house north of the One Stop Rental, which is the first resident nearest our shop. We built there. Behind us was just a field. I guess I was hoping that was going to end up, going into a commercial, some kind of field and being commercial. We run a 24-hour towing company there, so the noise and the trucks and stuff that do come in and out of there day and night, and that really, in that kind of business, can't really change for what we do. And then the other concern I have is the traffic that comes out. If I understand it right, the only access they're going to have is going to be on the First Street East, which comes on to 10th Avenue East. Right now, if you go during any of the busy hours, noon or 5 o'clock, whenever, 8 o'clock in the morning, there's traffic backed up past my residence. So it's going to be a lot more. If there's 80 units, that's going to be 100, 160 cars that's going to use that one access, and I think that's huge. We do a lot of, where I'm at there in my business, we do a lot of vehicle work and stuff. We do abandoned vehicles, a lot of work with the police departments and stuff for impounds and stuff. The less residential we have around there is huge on our part, I believe, with the trucks going in and out and stuff like that. And just basically how we do business there, I guess, having that many people in an apartment next door, I think is not very beneficial for what we're doing. And then the other thing is, I looked, and I don't know if this has any bearing on it, but on the future land map that they have, I looked at that. Right now it's R1. On the future land map, if I read it right, it shows that they wanted it to be commercial. If that means anything, I don't know. Rather than residential. And then if they did commercial north, south of First, there'd be a buffer there at First Street East. If we kept it all commercial on that side of the street, and then north of there would all be residential. There'd be a buffer there with a street at least. So, but other than that, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinrock.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll take comments. Anyone else would like to make comment on this? Please feel free to come forward.
Thanks for allowing us to come in and talk. I'm Jim Ladbury, and I have Ladbury Funeral Service just to the east of this proposed property. When we originally, and I guess I was either misinformed or didn't understand it completely, when we first bought the property, we thought that was all commercial on that side, which is a moot point at this point. Me personally, I don't have a big issue, the apartment complex, but the size of it, yeah. And then from where we're at, the traffic, of course, is not going to bother us all that much, especially if the road goes from First to 10th Avenue East, because it wouldn't be going past the funeral home. It wouldn't affect us per se at the funeral home. My main concern, and I've already talked to Kim about this, and that is if it's going to apartment complexes, we have a hill there already, which is an attraction. We have a hard time keeping motorcycles, whatnot, snowmobiles, and so on off of there. You've got apartment complex, you've got kids. Where does the liability come in? Is there going to be a fence put around it if that's the case to keep these people up? Because we should not have to protect our property in that regards. I can understand where Rick's coming from with the traffic issues through First there, and as if you've driven down 10th Avenue at particular times, you can't get it. If you want to turn left to come east, you can't. And cars are backed up, 15, 20 cars. So I mean, it's going to be a traffic issue. Personally, again, I don't have a problem with the apartment complex, but if, things just need to be laid out in a right manner. I was not expecting, when Kim had mentioned, the number of them, I was not expecting that size. But again, from where we're at, that part of it's not going to affect us. But my main concern would be then, of course, some of that traffic going to the west of us, or then, protecting it so that we don't have all of a sudden kids and whatnot using our property for a play space and so on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Library. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment. Please feel free to come up.
Hello, I'm Lauren Ross, homeowner on 2nd Street East. Received your information in the mail. It showed rezoning right up to our property on the back there. I do understand that has changed. I guess my concern is, is that going to get rezoned down the road again into R3? If this should go larger than anticipated to the other side of the street, which would be north of First Street. I guess I feel that should remain as R1. Also, I'm also concerned about the traffic on 10th Avenue. Of course, I work out at John Deere. I travel 10th Avenue several times a day, and I'm one of those 20-plus cars sitting in that line waiting at noon to get back and forth, and also in the morning. Putting in a large apartment complex there would directly increase the traffic, I believe, on that road and coming out of First Street. I guess I would not be opposed at all about going to commercial into that corner of that lot that is being proposed, Block 1, Lot 1. I feel that would be more acceptable to the area rather than an R3 apartment building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Lauren. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward. Anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come up. This time then, is there any comments from the commission? Mr. Nodland.
Mr. Chairman, Ed, can you update me what all these other lots around here, what are they zoned now?
The lots to the east and north are all R1. The area we're talking about is here, and the whole area is R1, and this is all R1 as well. You just have that commercial strip along here.
But East End is commercial.
East End is commercial.
And
general commercial.
The mini mart or whatever, that's commercial?
That would be commercial as well, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jackson.
the traffic issue at, on 10th there really is an issue, and I'm not sure what the solution is. We'll have to try to find one, but I'm not sure zoning it commercial would lessen the traffic. It depends, of course, on what the use would be in there, but the commercial could be just as heavy a traffic generator as the R3 possibly, if you had some retail or, I guess we can't know that for sure, but.
That is true. A good commercially run business, depending on what it is, can generate a lot of traffic. And there's already a lot of traffic there. If a GC would probably generate more traffic than they would imagine from apartment complex, traffic is an issue no matter what's there, I think. And are we guaranteed that that's the only access off of that, Mr. Soren? Is First Street, is that going to be it? Is that the only way you're going to get in and out of that apartment complex that's proposed?
As it's being proposed, that is the only street, but if you look at the future development, there is a master plan that kind of ties it together and brings another access point down to the business loop farther to the east. And First is looked at continuing beyond what is shown on here as well.
Okay. other comments? I do have one comment about the number of R3s we're just approving, or potentially approving. I think that is I think it's just a potential for too many R3s at this point that aren't being developed, that are already on the books. And maybe GC, maybe R2, or R1, leave it at R1. But putting more R3s on the books is, I think, a problem.
Mr. Chairman, I could just add some information, hopefully help you with your deliberation. When I originally talked to Kim about this is probably 6 months ago, and the R3 was not going to be a problem. You know, when I looked at it, and at that time, and I don't think our zoning maps has somehow changed, it appeared to me that it was general commercial, but, you know, when the application came in, we verified that it was R1. With that, you know, you normally transition from a general commercial to high density, and then you proceed, you know, lower down. So that sequence makes sense. But having an R3 by itself with R1 all around it can be problematic as well. I have proposed a condition with the plat that I will amend, but I had proposed a condition in a 6-foot opaque fence after talking with East End Auto that it would make sense, since they are the one downzoning and in essence would be potentially affecting the existing commercial, then they should be the one that should provide the buffering or the fence, a 6-foot opaque fence, in order to obscure and to provide safety from the commercial use that's already existing. I think maybe we should extend that on the preliminary plat if you decided to go that way on the east side as well, since that is residential, that's single-family residential. The question comes about, you know, does it make sense to continue general commercial or a commercial further to the east that is now R1? Yes, in many ways. Is commercial needed? Yes. But I also looked at this with respect to apartments on the east side. We don't have a lot of apartments really on the east side. You know, we have a big distribution of apartments, but they're primarily on the west side and the northwest. Having some newer apartments on the east side for the public would be beneficial. That's how I kind of came to my conclusion, and I thought it would be okay. But you know, I'm not going to necessarily fight hard for it because to me, having an R3 or having an extension of commercial in the future, if you chose to do that way, is 6 or half a dozen. You know, I see it can go either way. Both of the uses have their pros and cons associated with that. So those are my comments with respect to it. If you choose to do R3, I would recommend that the applicant would be required to put a 6-foot opaque fence along each property lines in order to buffer them from the less intensive use and the existing commercial use. They shouldn't be adversely impacted by that.
Mr. Nodland.
Mr. Chairman, Ed, how many units do you think could be fit in? I mean, do you have any idea?
If I recall right, and I don't see it on here, I thought, 4.3 acres. Looking at Roars, and they developed a little bit under, you know, they had 3 stories. Their lots were about 2 to 3 acres for that, and they would put up a 3-story, 32 units, you know. That being said, they could probably get at least a couple of those in with your required landscaping and setback, so they easily can get 100, I would say, on here, maybe even more. It just depends on, you know, if they want to go linear, horizontal, I mean, and not high up, or if they want to go vertical and do 3 stories with that. So they could put a significant number on here. And that's difficult to tell, but they could put a significant number of residential units. You know, with respect to the transportation issue, 4.3 acres, if that was zoned residential, commercial, you could have as many trips, if not more. Or you can have, you know, the land uses could be more problematic for the people further to the north because now you've extended a commercial designation that could have a lot of impacts, you know. So that one's a difficult one to determine as well. Unless you look at it and say, I only want X number of trips for that First Street Southeast, and if that's the case, then you probably should leave it as R1 and not consider any greater intensity for that area.
One more question.
Yes, Mr.
Chairman. Old Highway 10 is not an option for an exit.
Too close to the intersection.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add,
Mr.
have you
Elkins.
included, these are part of the inventory that we have for R3? They are.
I included it because I had spoken to Mr. Colling, about 4 to 5 months ago, 6 months ago with respect to this. So I knew that he and I had spoken, so I included that in there. Now, to the extent, I forgot what my calculations, I think I may have put, 100 for it. I'm not sure what my totals that I put for it.
I thought that when he came in at one time, it was something like, well,
I get 200? I
thought it
guess
was
I'm smarter than I
160.
thought.
That's what I was remembering, 440 unit complex. But thank God we're all wrong. Huh?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Toots.
Mr. Cotan, earlier today, we heard about Southwest Grain having issues with stuff in their yard. Say if East End recovered a vehicle with an oil tank, would there be any change of how East End would have to handle those vehicles or the vehicles that they recover because of difference in zoning?
The GC actually prohibits when we're talking about that flammable liquids. I'm almost 100% positive of that. In the industrial, that was a problem that we always run in with Tiger Discount. We had to tell them, go there, that's where you could park. And the fire department's always requiring them to leave because that is a general commercial zone, and then you have the restaurant nearby. So they're always requiring the people with the placards with the flammable liquids to leave. I believe that would be the case with this as well, that if they were having those trucks, then they should be drained, and if they had them as flammable or hazardous, they would be required to leave per the fire code. So I don't see that would adversely impact what we're talking about today.
Is that burden on East End Auto right now? Any other comments, questions? This time we'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Nodland.
well, for the sake of making a motion, I'll make one. I move the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend denial of the rezoning petition from R1 to R3 for Lot 1, Block 1, Sunrise Park subdivision, as depicted in the application materials, is not meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and being contrary to interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion? If being none, all those in favor of the motion for the...
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
I just want to hear a little bit more about the motion. I have a hunch, George, you're probably thinking about the R3? Or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the R3.
About too much R3?
Too much R3.
Yeah.
Right, that's where...
And that's where I'm
That's
at.
where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Throw a little discussion there, too. I think, my comments last meeting were that, okay, when are you going to develop this to the people that we're presenting? When are you going to have it done? And, basically, are you going to feet? Are you going to, to those people that had been dragging their feet for 2, 3, 4 years, have got some properties developed, and they're not going to develop these, they're going to sit on the ones they've got already built, and it creates a higher rental problem here, and they're not getting done what the R3s have been on the book for years. So, I agree with George.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman, to me, it's fine that we've got 3,200 units approved, I mean, a number, but how long does it take to build those 3,200 units? And that's my concern, and how many more do we keep adding before people start building these units? That's my biggest concern. There aren't these, we don't have enough contractors, and apparently there's not enough contractors coming into town, or the intent is, like Mr. Chairman, like Earl says, people are not building them. But we're trying to find a way to get the rents down to help the people and help the housing situation, but it's not getting done. It's not getting built. And that's my biggest concern, is somehow we have to start building these units. Since I've been on this board, we continually are changing R1 to R3s or R2s to R3s because we need more R3s, but they're not getting built.
Okay, but help me understand, how will denying this help that situation?
Well, if Mr. Colling said he'd build the all R3s in the next year, it might change my mind a little bit, but I also have a concern about that is the traffic issues which the people brought up, and next to that commercial area of East End Auto, and I have a concern about that. And a fence probably could solve part of that, but I still have a concern about that. But I just think we've approved enough R3s, and we need to see somebody step up to the plate and start building some R3s.
You know, Gene, if I might, or Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
concerned
Hopkins.
about the number of R3 we have in the pipeline, too. But more importantly, I don't know that this necessarily fits that area. We're transitioning from R1 to R3. That's really what we're doing here, right? I mean, that's what it appears to me to be. And I don't know if that's a good transition. What is a good fit for this property? I don't know that commercial is the answer either. That's the problem.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
I think that we're talking about transitioning. We're transitioning from other commercial that's adjacent to this.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And we'd rather transition from commercial to R3 than R1. I am very much in step with you guys on the R3 issue, the total picture. But I still think we have to be very careful. I think we have to be very careful, because if we create a false market with the R3, we're just going to drive prices up more. I'm ready to start saying no to some R3. But I think Ed makes a good point about we don't have any on this end of town. We are going to do some just to the northeast, right? I don't know, how many units is that?
The ones to the northeast off of 18th Avenue, one is Han Development, and I think they're proposing roughly 60, and then the other one, the flip side of that, is about the same.
Did you say 60 or 16?
60.
60?
So combined for that whole block area, it'd be potentially 120, but they're still working out their site plans to figure out how they could, how many units they could have on it.
Gene, what did you mean by no R3 in this area?
We've got all kinds of apartments, theoretically, being built in the northwest corner of
Right,
town.
and nothing new being built down in this area.
But nothing out
Yeah.
here, except for what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Nowden.
just say a couple comments. Yeah, you're talking about holding or creating the price increase. The price increase is that there aren't enough R3s right now. And I'm talking about to the consumer. I'm looking at the consumer now, the citizens out there renting these places. We need some R3s built. I think we've had enough proposed. That's my argument. Now let's get some built. That's where I'm at. And I don't know how to create that. I don't want to force anything to do that. I'm not trying to send a message that we don't want to develop in this area, but we need R3s built. And they aren't being built. They're built very slowly. That's my issue.
I think this is a perfect area for a PUD with conditions on it of timeline too. And Mr. Corton could draw that up very well with this developer, I think. I really do believe they could come back some point in time with that. Because it's in this unusual area for, going from GC to R1 to R3, and yet we had R1 right next to GC. It's a mixed area, but I think Mr. Catan, with his love of PUDs, could do that.
With that, I guess I need to comment on it. So yes, I do love PDs because you can take care of them and appropriately and you can condition them. And I think it's been probably shown today that I could throw out some conditions as well. So with respect to that, that would make sense. I don't know if that, but we have a motion already on there. So
Right.
that motion would have to be removed, so you have to act on it. That being said, if you wanted to pursue that avenue, the applicant can move forward with that. And, we could propose the issues and try to accommodate, obviously, setbacks and things of that nature with respect to the properties on both sides.
I would like to see continuing on the motion, and then they come back with a PUD and appropriate zoning or whatever is necessary for that at that time. Because he doesn't really know what he's going to put on there for sure. But I think there's no hurry. That's my impression. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, are we basing the recommendation for denial, it's based on not meeting the requirements, it says? Are we basing it on that, or are we basing it on too much R3, just to be clear on the motion?
We're basing it, I think the premise on this was traffic. And what was your other basic reason for that? We didn't base it on too much R3.
Okay.
But whatever went in there would probably increase the traffic because it's a situation that we've got one outlet and one inlet there, it's all. And proposed in the future, but that's not there yet.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, though, am I hearing that we would entertain a PUD at some future time, a PUD submittal that might be a little higher density than R1?
Well, I think it would be something, yeah, higher density R1, but that would fit, because this is quite a mixed area, really. Quite a mixed-use area.
Okay, I just
And,
want
yep,
to...
I mean, that's what in discussion, I think that's what would be something favorable for these people that own the property to come back with, so they could utilize it. Mr. Knopf?
Mr. Chairman, I have no problem with that myself. I understand that. There were two concerns with the traffic and the safety with children. There were two or three concerns that I had. And I know a fence would help with some of that, but I just think that's too many units for that area with all that's there now to try to put that many units with that. And then on top of that, I have a concern about R3s not being built.
Thank you, John. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
just
Krieg?
question or comment, whatever. I guess I'm interested in, maybe if Mr. Colin could allude to when he plans to build. I mean, I think we got good points both ways here. I mean, I think a PUD might help, but, if it didn't seem like it was real urgent, there's more depending on, when and if it got approved. Assuming it would get approved, would something happen this summer? I mean, would we get something in place? I mean, I'm all for getting R3s built, but if it's just going to sit there for a year or two, that R3 timeframe is going to be expanded out where it's going to divert back to something else anyway. So at that point, I'm not really favoring approving it if it's going to sit for a while, but do we know a timeframe, or do we ask Mr. Colling back up?
We're in discussion for a motion, but Mr. Colling, to clarify Mr. Krieg's question.
There's no way we'd start anything this year. We have no plans, we have no site, we don't have any site plans, we have nothing. I mean, it's going to take 5 or 6 months to develop a master plan for this thing.
Okay.
So there's no way that we'd start anything this year.
You wouldn't come through our process for another 90 days, because wouldn't you have to apply?
Well, that's coming up next.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's 120 days out just from receiving his permission to go forward for design improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. I think that answered your question, didn't it, Mr. Krieg?
Yes.
Any other discussion? If being none, all those in favor of the motion deny signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 2 opposed. Motion carried, recommend denial. On item 18, Mr. Coley, do you recommend we act on that, for that?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, it is an application that was put before you. You should take a vote on that, to either approve or deny, whatever
Okay.
you choose.
Okay. Item 18, we have a preliminary plat. Is to consider a preliminary plat for Sunrise Park subdivision generally described as the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 139 North, Range 96 West. And I'd ask the applicant at this time if they want to present, or give you a chance, maybe if you would like to remove that, or if you'd like us to act on it. Would that be appropriate?
We'd like you to act on it. Whether or
Okay.
not this goes with the zoning, I mean, if it doesn't get changed to zoning,
Okay, so we'll act on it, and we will take public input, and if you'd like to make any comments on their preliminary plat, now go ahead.
this was just taken off of, when I talked to Bob Prosiv, this was done, most of this work was done several years ago, the platting of this stuff. The street and the way the street continues and the way everything goes in there, everything was there from before. He just elaborated on it, and no one did anything with the 4 acres that we own there, so we're trying to get it into the city now.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comment for Mr. Coley?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
is there
Mr.
any
Jack.
chance, Jim, that the owner to the east would cooperate in bringing that street further east and then north on Baker?
We've asked more than once, and he's not very receptive to it right now.
Okay.
This part of the reason that we're late getting here with this rezoning request is because the city wanted us, someone from the city wanted us to bring the 2 lots in directly to the north of our property there on First Street, right north of First Street. So it took a considerable amount of time to get those owners and people that they've been talking to convinced that those needed to come with us.
You know, Baker's already stubbed out from the north, and I think before we allow any development in there, I think we're going to require that street anyway. So we could do it now and have it done with. But if they're not ready to, they're not ready to.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
Can I
Khan.
just provide some suggestions to Mr. Coley? Without the rezoning, you're only going to be allowed to put a residence on a 4-acre piece. You'd still have to do the improvements. I don't see that it'd probably be cost-effective for you to do that. The only other option would be come back at a later date for a special use permit to put a duplex on, but a duplex on 4-something acres, plus the improvements that you're going to have to do, wouldn't be cost-effective. My suggestion to you, I'm not going to recommend denial because these are oversized lots, but, would be continue it and based upon the R1 zone, come back with more of an R1 plat, Otherwise, I don't see that it would be cost-effective for you ever to do this. So I don't see there's any advantage for you to do it that way. In our future subdivision regulations, we would look at this and we would require ghost platting so that, you're not going to mess it up for future splitting. And we would look at this and probably require a lot of other, future potential for segregating the property. But at this point, with the R1 zone, I don't see it's to your benefit. My suggestion to you would be withdraw it and then come back with something that's more indicative of a single-family plat. Otherwise, I don't think that you'll ever come through fruition to build upon it because you're going to have to extend the road on a big lot, and I just don't see it would be cost-effective to you. That'd be my recommendation.
Does it, am I hearing you guys right that if we went to a GC, you probably would not approve a GC going from an R1 to a GC in that area with all those special conditions and, things like that? Can I ask that question here, or do I have to
Sure.
ask that someone else?
This
or-
went from a GC to an R1.
Or I think the R1 may have been there before. I'm not sure the the timing of that. My personal feel, Mr. Chairman, would be, you have GC established on the road, okay. Then you have R1. If you're going to do commercial, you should probably do CC or LC. That would make more sense, because you have R1, it's abutting against R1 instead of a more intensive use. You'd still be allowed to do a lot of commercial uses, but a CC or LC would make more sense. I wouldn't be in favor of continually going with GC.
I would say that's the best answer you can get right now.
Okay, so I guess if I intended to go to a CC or an LC, should I continue with the plating? Or if I continued to want to do this to an LC or a CC, should we continue with the plating today and I reapply for R1 to CC or RC? LC.
If you prefer me to comment, I will. Hypothetically, not to give advice or anything, but I would suggest that you would continue this until you submitted a rezone application to CC or LC.
Okay.
And
so
the
we
city
should
would
probably
evaluate it, and the commission as well, if you wanted to pursue that action and not move forward with your subdivision.
Okay, all right. Okay, then I would suggest that we just deny, or,
We'll continue this. We'll put it on continuance.
Okay.
And table it essentially until you decide to bring it back with your desires.
All righty.
Okay? We'll leave it open even.
Okay.
That's my recommendation. Or whatever it can be.
You know what I hate about this?
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation would be that you take a vote to table the item, and then you can take that off the table at any future date.
At this time, we'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment on this preliminary plat. This is a public hearing, they can do so. Please feel free to come forward. Anyone in the commission wish to make comment? Being none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I would ask for a motion. Yes. Then a motion to table this indefinitely to a future date. There's been a second by Mr. Nodland. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Coley. This time, we have a final plat. Item 19 is to consider a final plat for the Prairie Ridge subdivision, and generally described in the southeast quarter of Section 34, Township 140 North, Range 96 West. This time, I'd ask the party presenting to please come forward.
Been patiently waiting all day.
People in the back of the room.
One question, this is all legal. It's all legal, right? It's already been zoned for this, it's all legal. Engineers say they can do it. They can work the sewers, all that infrastructure, streets, right? That's right. Then he shouldn't have that. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Chris Badesky with Madison Engineering. I'm here to do a presentation for the final plat application for the Prairie Ridge subdivision, which is located on 10th Street and Elm Avenue on the east end of Dickinson. We were here a few weeks ago with the preliminary plat. We went through a couple of items. One of the, there was two items that we were asked to address. One was with the park board, and it's my understanding that Mr. Doug Liebeck met with the park board, and so that issue has been completed. And the second item is to look at a potential of a PUD to try to reduce the impact to the neighborhoods. We did do a couple of different layouts, and we went over them with Mr. Croton. To try to move the units closer into to the middle of the property, basically, the only really option we had was to go back to the private street concept, which we submitted, and maybe Mr. Croton can expand on that a little bit more. But we ended up with 36 units from the 39, so from the earlier when you saw, we actually reduced it by 3 units. What triggered that was the 7,000 square foot first unit in a townhouse requirement. So we went from the 39 that you had previously seen to 36. Okay? I believe that we have now met all the conditions of the city requirements with the setbacks, the street improvement requirement for the extension of Elm Avenue between 10th and 11th. That's shown on the plat. And I've actually brought some site plans if you're interested. And I have a full-scale site plan too showing it as well, how this property will ultimately lay out with the townhouses, because it is R2 zoned. I haven't been in front of you before with a final plat application, so I don't know how far you want me to go. I think we know the property very well. We know the application well, so.
What you have depicted there is the same as what we've been giving then as file platters, or something different on there?
Nope, this is, from the final plat, this is exactly the same as the final plat. It's a little bit different from the preliminary plat, because we, if I may, this area right in here was reworked to allow for the 7,000 square foot for the first unit in a townhouse lot, to meet that 7,000 square foot. Would you like to see the townhouse layout? It's up to you, whatever.
I don't, but if anyone does?
Okay. I brought it just in case.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Badesky or comments?
Just one quick one. Lot 7, why is it so...
Weird?
Yeah, I mean, you can square that up and still get the square footage, or do you have to do that to get the square footage for lot 6?
Exactly. And that shows that that's the 7,000 square foot for that.
Couldn't you make a straight line either way and find that?
We originally had it that way because of the fourplex unit in the interior. We need to have room for the turnaround at the end, so that's why I wanted to retain some room on the north end of that for the turnaround. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Soren, just wanted to ask you, this meets all the requirements of the city as far as streets, sewer, water, it fits into the plans that the city can handle and legally fits the descriptions that need to be done to
Well,
build?
currently, this development, I've not seen their water, sewer, or grading plan at this point. So, as far as water and sewer, it is in an area that is developed with that. And, we can provide the service that we provide to the neighboring areas that are developed with that. But as far as the actual proposed through the lots, I have not seen or reviewed that at this current time. Other than that, I believe it does meet all of our requirements for R2.
Thank you.
If I could add to that?
Sure.
We are proposing to loop the water between 10th and 11th down Elm, and then the sanitary sewer, a portion will flow to 11th and a portion will flow to 10th because of the topography of the site. We're proposing a manhole at the high point for cleaning of the sewers in both directions. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
there are a half a dozen technical things in the plating itself from a survey standpoint. I gave those to Mr. Corton that he can work out with the developer.
Mr. Croton?
Yes, just wanted to reiterate that, the lot, the setbacks need to be removed. That's nice to have that for preliminary, but on final plat, they need to be removed. Basically, just make sure your surveyor meets the century code. I'll just go through a couple of them. The curve data needs to be accurately depicted. Block numbers need to be shown whenever you have a road segregating it. So in essence, on the west side of Elm, you would need to have lots 1, 2, and 3 be part of Block 1, and then the other ones would be Block 2. You need to depict it that way. And and the dimensions need to be shown throughout for this. Just a minor issue under the City Planning Commission approval. As the secretary, you might put me instead of Sean Soren. But other than that, just make sure that you have everything for filing. Have your surveyor ensure that that is all done. Otherwise, when we get this at Mylar, it'll have to be corrected before we'll get that recorded.
Can we do a paper copy?
You could do a paper copy that we could look at to make sure that it's in compliance, and then you submit your Mylar. I'd prefer that.
Great, thank you. Okay?
Thank you very much. Mr. Nodland has a question, I believe.
Chairman, time plan, time frame?
As soon as you give us the green light. That's what the owner has told us, that they're going to start building as soon as possible.
So we would have units this fall?
This summer, correct?
Or this summer.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. This time I'd ask if there's anyone else in the public who would like to make comment on this final plat, please feel free to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I just have to come up here so I can see his diagram. From what I have seen here that we got off of your website last night, the plan looks pretty much like what you presented last month, correct? So I guess I still have the concerns about the continuation of Elm Street. I know we talked about parking last week, but also I was thinking of snow removal, which can be a big headache for the city, and, you know, if we get snow in the winter, which we usually do. And so if I take the scale from his conceptual layout, there could be probably, a 300-foot, 100-yard-long area down that street that bisects property with pretty much continuous driveways all along it, almost on both sides. So then my question is, for those homeowners in those townhouses who then have very little, if any, front yard space, what would they do with that snow? Because for us now on 11th, a good part of the snow removal, when the city plows the street and then the snow is pushed up to the side, it's up to the homeowner then to keep the driveways clear. And so most of the homeowners there have snow blowers, and they simply blow that into their yards. Well, now, if you have no yard to blow the snow into, what's going to happen to all that snow? Will the city truck it out, or what will happen to that? Because those driveways will have to be kept clear somehow. And then also, I don't know where things like fire hydrants and mailboxes would be positioned along that street, because that's another responsibility of the homeowner. If there is a fire hydrant on your particular lot, then you assume the responsibility to keep that area clear so the emergency people can use it. And the same with the postal boxes that we have along 11th Street, and I'm just assuming that there probably be postal boxes put in on this new continuation of Elm also. So then again, what happens in the winter when we have a significant snowfall? And then finally, I see that it has enlarged the area going into that little condo area, but that was a problem last month too. How do emergency vehicles get into that condo area if they have to? And it still seems to me to be kind of a bottleneck there, so that design doesn't seem to have been improved a whole lot. So I guess my question is, you know, would this create a problem for the city keeping the continuation of Elm Street open in the wintertime when we have significant snowfall? And would it create any problem with emergency vehicles getting into that condo area on the east side of the street?
Thank you for your comments, and what was your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Don Brueggemeyer.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask if there's anyone else who would like to make comment, please feel free to come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Brueggemeyer, and my question, I would just like a little information. I'm not accustomed to looking at this type of a map, and I'm not sure exactly how to read it. And my concern is that my husband and I live in a house that's on lot 7 and 8, and those triangle just immediately to the, well, it would be the west of this hill, or northwest, in the diagram on the top. And we have a long fence which goes basically along this line here, and it's 6 inches in from the property line, and it ends at the rebar. The rebar is 6 feet approximately from the street. So our fence ends, and there's about 3 feet of grass, then there's the sidewalk, and that's about 3 feet wide, and then it's the street, 11th Street East. And the way this diagram is drawn, and then I would just like some help with interpretation, the new street that comes would come and make a point on the hill, that lot, but it looks like it comes right at the point of our lot, but it's not at the rebar. That the dot there is not the rebar. As I understand, that's the intersection of the two streets. How far away from the property line will the street actually be? What is on that, we'll call it the northwest side toward our house, what is on that side of the street? Is there going to be a boulevard? Is there a sidewalk? How close? You know, my husband talked about snow removal, and I'm kind of concerned about what's going to happen to our fence corner there.
You live on lot 7, did you say, or lot 8?
It's 7 and 8. The
7
house,
and 8.
Yeah, our garage is
Okay.
closest to the hill, and the corner of the garage is like 10 feet from the property line, as was.
I think our city engineer can give you an answer to that point and reference it.
Well, to the question about sidewalks, sidewalks will be required on that street, just like it is on 11th or 10th.
On both sides.
The point where you're seeing that line come up, that is the rebar, that is the property corner pin. That is the lines on here are not showing the edge of the street, it's showing the property lines.
Okay.
This is 60-foot right-of-way in this particular plat is being proposed. Our streets are typically a 40-foot face of curb to face of curb, which would leave 10 feet approximately from the front of the curb to the property line, which has a 5-foot sidewalk and then a 5-foot boulevard requirement there.
Okay, so the street in reality will be a number of feet away from the rebar?
Approximately 10 feet
10
from the
feet.
property line.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make comment on this final plat? Please feel free to come forward. Anyone else in the public who would like to make comment? Anyone on the commission wish to make comment? Being none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Alkin.
I'm going to move that the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the final plat for Prairie Ridge subdivision as depicted in the application materials as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Is there a second to this
Second.
motion? Mr. Tooze, a second to this? Any further discussion? There were no attachments to this one? No recommendations?
No, the materials on there are fine. I just mentioned the, which I call more minor corrections for the final plat. So they're going to submit to me a paper copy, and we'll ensure that those technical issues will be resolved, but nothing substantive that I needed to put as a condition.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Recommend final plat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else anyone would like to bring before the commission this time? Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.